Okay, here's something to think about. In a world that's, constantly pulling for your attention, what does it actually mean to be? Well, authentically you.
Right, or even just genuinely informed, not just like skimming headlines.
Exactly. How do you cut through all that noise?
Well, that's what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating ideas from El Manual del Inadaptado Lúcido.
Which translates to the Lucid Misfit's Handbook.
Right. Spot on. And it's not your typical self-help book. It offers a pretty, well, radical take on avoiding all that external clamor.
And embracing, a more intense life.
The life of intense thought and feeling, yeah. That's the core of it.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, what are we trying to figure out here?
Basically, we want to unpack what this Lucid Misfit idea is really all about. It's surprising.
More than just being a nonconformist.
Oh, definitely. We'll look at what they actively avoid and maybe more importantly, why. What's going on inside.
And what they embrace instead.
Exactly. And also this really interesting idea that for some people, it's not even a choice. It's described as an incapacity for anesthesia.
An incapacity for anesthesia. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're aiming to pull out those nuggets of wisdom, about living deeply when everything feels a bit superficial.
Understand the guy behind it too.
Yeah, understand the author a bit, and then crucially, connect it back to you listening. What could this mean for you?
All right, let's get into it. So the source, it paints this picture of what the Lucid Misfit doesn't do.
It's quite specific.
Yeah, it says one doesn't partake, you see, in the usual trifles.
Yeah.
No smoking, no tippling, no illicit substances. Okay, standard enough maybe.
But then it goes further, right?
Right, it moves on to things like the raucous clamour of football. We're getting lost in those crowds just to sort of paper over an existential void.
And even new gadgets.
Totally irrelevant, utterly beside the point, it says. So this isn't about being, morally superior. What's the real reason behind opting out?
And that's the key distinction, isn't it? The author is really clear. Not out of some tiresome moralistic bent, but purely for self-preservation.
Self-preservation, okay.
It's very deliberate. It's not about looking down on anyone. It's about protecting some kind of internal space, a deep inner world.
So for this misfit, those distractions, they're not just boring. They're actually harmful.
Detrimental, yeah, to their core way of being. It seems they're not trying to fill a void with noise because, well, maybe they don't feel that same void or they know noise won't fill it.
Okay, so if that's what they don't do, what do they do? What's the positive action, the thing they embrace?
What's their singular indulgence?
Yeah, exactly. What is it?
This is where it gets really interesting. It's to think, to read, to doubt, to investigate, to scratch beneath the surface until it, quite frankly, burns.
Wow, that sounds pretty intense, maybe even a bit...
Elitist, solemn, insufferable, he acknowledges that.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Yeah, he says, frightfully elitist, terribly solemn, utterly insufferable, but then he pushes back immediately.
How so?
He insists, no plinth here, no ivory tower, it's grounded. There's the grit of the street, the very skin of experience.
And the rather fetching dark circles under one's eyes from philosophical insomnia. I like that part.
Me too. It makes it real.
It really does. It's not about being detached. It's about this deep, maybe even exhausting engagement with things.
Exactly.
So for you listening, maybe grappling with, constant information overload, what's a practical takeaway here? How do you start cultivating that singular indulgence instead of just scrolling?
I think it boils down to being intentional. Instead of just passively consuming, actually asking why. Why is this happening?
Seeking out different views.
Yes. Allowing yourself to genuinely doubt, not just taking the first easy answer you find.
So less headline scrolling, more digging.
That's the idea. It's the difference between just knowing what happened and trying to understand the forces behind it.
And for the Lucid Misfit, this isn't just a hobby. It's like a fundamental need.
Seems so. The author mentions trying to be normal, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he says, one did try, mind you. Years spent masquerading as normal, donning the guise of levity. He talks about forcing connections that felt wrong, like an ill-fitting suit.
Oof. Sounds uncomfortable.
He calls the result ghastly indigestion from trying to fake being carefree, sampling insouciance.
I think a lot of us can probably relate to that feeling, trying to fit a mold that just doesn't feel right, even if we don't have philosophical insomnia.
Totally. And it really highlights that for some people, this intense way of being isn't really a choice, is it? It's more fundamental.
Which brings us back to that phrase, simply an incapacity for anesthesia.
Exactly. They can't not feel or think or question things deeply.
So what's that like, living with that kind of raw sensitivity?
It's a really powerful idea. It means you can't just numb yourself to, say, the sadness in a news story or the hypocrisy you spot in a conversation or even just intense beauty.
They're not just observations, they're experiences.
Visceral experiences, yeah. They hit harder and they make you think and question.
So the usual coping mechanisms, distractions, noise,
Yeah.
they just don't work.
Apparently not. Which raises a really big question the author poses. What's it like living in a world where being like this is seen as almost a criminal act?
Because the world, as he says, applauds the distracted and quite simply punishes the intense.
Exactly. It totally flips the script on what's considered normal or even desirable.
Wow. And this perspective, it's not coming from some detached academic. It feels very grounded.
Very. And that comes through when we look at the author herself, Pablo E.Mera.
Okay, let's talk about him. How does he introduce himself? What does that tell us?
Well, he's super candid. My name is Pablo E.Mera, a huge fan of Metallica and Oasis.
Uh-huh. Okay. Eclectic taste.
A rugger bugger, a passionate rugby player, that is A+ blood group, and, well, a bit of a stammerer.
Okay.
And he adds, none of which is likely to change.
I love that. It's not some airbrushed image. He's just...
Exactly. It's an embrace of the full, messy, complex self. Owning your baggage, as he calls it.
So the message feels earned, rooted in actual experience.
Absolutely. Not just theory. And he says he writes with a purpose that comes from that experience.
Even the tough stuff.
Especially the tough stuff. He mentions having a few rather splendid successes, but I've also managed to commit nearly every conceivable blunder.
Been there. Well, maybe not every blunder.
No. But he says that's why he writes, so that maybe something he learned, often the hard way, through the sheer force of repeated stumbles, might serve someone else.
That's quite humble, actually.
It is. And connecting it all, he also says he writes to show that one can indeed live with all this baggage and yet, quite remarkably, continue to dream.
So embracing the whole package, flaws, quirks, stumbles, everything is actually the foundation.
That seems to be the message. True wisdom comes from those unanesthetized experiences, maybe the difficult ones most of all.
Okay, so let's pull this together. We've explored this idea of the lucid misfit, defined less by deliberate choices, maybe, and more by who they fundamentally are. Acutely aware, unable to just numb themselves to reality.
Right, someone who consciously opts out of the usual distractions, smoking, drinking, football noise, chasing gadgets.
But, and this is key, it's not about judging others.
No, not about moral superiority. It's framed as self-preservation, a deep need to think and feel authentically.
And that really striking idea we keep coming back to.
The incapacity for anesthesia.
Yeah. For the author, Pablo E.Mera, it's not some cool rebellion, it's just an inability not to question, not to feel things intensely.
Even when, as he puts it, that feels almost a criminal act.
In a world that rewards distraction and kinda punishes intensity.
Exactly.
And his honesty about himself is so important, isn't it? Embracing being a Metallica and Oasis fan.
Right, and the rugby, the blood type, the stammer, all of it.
He owns his baggage.
And still dreams, using all those experiences, even the blunders, hoping maybe it helps someone else.
It's about the courage to just be yourself, fully.
Yeah. Which leads us to a final thought, maybe for you listening, considering these ideas from the Lucid Misfit's Handbook.
How much of our own baggage, our own quirks or difficult feelings do we try to anesthetize? You know, just to fit in or avoid discomfort?
And what could we potentially gain? What might open up if we just, well, allowed ourselves to really feel and think and question everything, a bit more like a lucid misfit?